Hello and welcome back to the Ascent Cycling Podcast for today's daily recap of the Tour de France, stage number 12 between Saint-Paul-Trois-Châteaux and Nîmes. And a breakaway has won today on a flat stage for the first time on the Tour de France. Mark Cavendish is not the winner of a mass sprint.
He's not a mass sprint. And quickly, I just want to make one announcement before we get into the pod today. It is indeed coming home, Guillaume, but it also came home for the breakaway today. Like you said, Nils Politt with a monstrous performance from, I think, a 13-man breakaway, riding away from Harry Sweeney, Emmanuel Viti, and also Stefan Kung. Super strong performance by Politt. He was the most aggressive rider in said breakaway, and a thoroughly deserved first World Tour win for the German rider today.
Absolutely, and an emotional roller coaster for Bora Hansgrohe, who this morning announced that Peter Sagan would not take the start of the race. I guess he was, as I said on Twitter, totally lacking the energy.
This guy.
Top tier banner.
This guy.
But yeah, a very, very strong win. I think he was either the strongest or the second strongest. I do think that Harry Sweeney made one mistake. I think his attack when he dropped the rest of the breakaway was quite strong, but then he sat in the middle of Emmanuel Viti when Nils Politt attacked, and I think that was exactly where Harry Sweeney lost today's stage. But as you said, a strong breakaway because we do have four riders at the front in the final 10-15k, but before that we have more riders, including world champion Julien Lafilippe, Kenny Elissonde, who was already in yesterday's breakaway, EBH, Andre Greipel, the gorilla from Rostock, and I think at one point he was actually the favorite to take the win when we said that the peloton let the breakaway go. But that took some time because, as we had mentioned yesterday, we did get some echelons at the start of the stage with, I believe, Nils Politt being the first rider to try and create gaps.
Yeah, Nils Politt was trying to explode things. I think quite a few riders were actually, and quite a few teams, very nervous. Literally from the flag drop, 500 meters later, we saw echelons. It was a pretty crazy start to the stage, and quite a lot of riders were dropped. We saw the likes of Chris Froome dropped, Geraint Thomas as well. I don't think any kind of GC riders were dropped though, so everything did come back together, and no real echelon damage done today, I guess. So a bit of a disappointment, I guess, in that regard, because at one point it looked like we could have 150 kilometers of just crazy echelon racing, which would have been absurd, but absurdly good to watch as well.
Absolutely. I think the rest of the parcours didn't really fit the criteria for that echelon stage. But yeah, the breakaway did take some time to go. But when it went, I think it was quite clear to everyone that this was the winning move. Alpes and Phoenix tried to chase it down because they forgot to send someone in the breakaway, but quickly realized that there was no point and that the win would be for one of the 13 riders in the first group, who, just paced until, I think, the final 20k, where we had, actually 30k, where we had an attack by Nils Politt. I think Connor Swift tried to follow at first point, and then Stefan Kung, Emmanuel Viti, and Harry Sweeney. Interestingly enough, Stefan Kung dropped quite early in a false flat. I expected him to do an attack slightly better than the one on the Ronde van Vlaanderen, or Gore-Velgem actually, that he had done. Well, no attacks for Stefan Kung, yet another L for FDG, whose Tour de France has been from bad to worse. And then, Harry Sweeney attacked, Politt joined, bridged, Evity did the same, Politt attacked, and then monster final 15 kilometers, putting Stefan Kung to 2 minutes on 15 kilometers is a performance and a half. And then peloton wrapped it up with Mark Cavendish winning the peloton sprint. So I guess that gives me 1 point in the prediction.
It certainly doesn't, but it does give Mark Cavendish 2 points in the green jersey. So he's clearly trying to defend that quite aggressively. I mean, he's not trying to go for every intermediate and burn himself out, but he is trying to pick up points where he can. Currently, he is, I think, he's 79 points ahead of Michael Matthews, so still a very nice lead for Cav. So looking ahead to stage 13, we have, I think, the second longest stage of this Tour de France, just under 220 kilometers. So it's a big day in the saddle. Only one categorized climb, though, I think. We're heading along the Occitanie region, Guillaume, towards the Pyrenees, but no big mountains today, before finishing in Carcassonne, which I do think is a fortified city, actually, which is quite an interesting finish location. But anyway, it's going to be a battle between the sprinters and the attackers, I think, again. And who do you see coming out on top in that battle, Guillaume?
I didn't expect to have my predictions already asked this early on. But yeah, as you said, it's going to be quite a long stage, a long day on the saddle for the professional peloton of this Tour de France, reaching Carcassonne in the Occitanie region, as you've aforementioned. Indeed, a fortified town who lost to Magnus Cort Nielsen, winning on the Tour de France. I believe it was 3 years ago in a small group. It was then a mountain stage which had seen, well, the start of the Pyrenees. This time, it's probably going to be either a sprint or a breakaway win. I think it's a very similar profile to today's, actually, or at least the physiognomy of the race can be very similar. You'll either have a big breakaway, and then, well, if one sprinting team is not in the breakaway, they've lost, or you'll have a mass sprint. I think the profile in the end maybe suits a bit more the peloton compared to today. There's less risk of echelon, but it still is there. But I think we will see a battle in the streets of Carcassonne for the sprinters. I think they've allowed the breakaway to win today. I don't think they're going to give a second gift to the escapees.
It's an interesting one because, 220 kilometers, it's a very long stage for one team to control. And one team who we would have seen control, Bora Hansgrohe, they won't be any more without Peter Sagan in this race. So I can see De Koning, I can see Bike Exchange, and maybe Bahrain Victorious riding for their sprinters, Matthews, Colbrelli, and of course Mark Cavendish. I can't really see any other teams really working on the front apart from them. So I feel actually like this is going to be a breakaway win. I think the sprinters may be after it, but if, we get a 10-man breakaway or more, I think they can go to the line.
Okay. On that scenario, yes. I think Alpecin is also one of the teams that should pace if there was a breakaway. But yeah, if you have a scenario like today where most of the sprinting teams send someone ahead, then, well, the breakaway will be win. One team I want to see attack tomorrow, though, is BNB. They've lost Brian Coquard, their sprinter, in stage 9 in Tignes, and they have nothing to play for when it comes to flat stages, yet they did not send anyone in the breakaway today. And for a continental team invited on the Tour de France, I feel like you want to show your jersey, and that is not the way to do so by just staying in the peloton and finishing 15 minutes behind. So I think BNB will try to be on the attack tomorrow. Probably the same for Total Energy and for Intermarché. I know they're not invited, but you get what I mean. And yeah, if there's enough riders, the breakaway might win. But as I said, I'm backing a sprint.
Well, I think we'll move into our predictions then. I will continue to say the scoreline because I am 3-2 up still in our prediction game via Cav. I'm not going to go for Cav this time around though. And I will go for one of those French invited teams actually to take a win tomorrow with a man named Anthony Turgy of Total, what they call now, Total Energies. Really strong in the Belgian Classics earlier this year. I think 3 top 10s in the likes of Ronda. He was also second at Kerner, I think, in a sprint. So I feel like he's a rider really suited to a day like this. A tough day of racing, quick day, some rolling hills. He could take it in a sprint or solo. And I think we saw him trying to attack earlier today as well. So I'm going for Anthony Turgy. And I can't remember Total Energy winning on the Tour de France. So the first win for them in a while.
It would be the first win in a while. I'm actually going to try and think quickly about when was their last win. It probably was with Europcar back in the days. I don't think they've... Actually, I think it might have been Lilian Calmejean. All right, I might be wrong. I think it's Calmejean at La Station des Rousses in 2016.
I think you could be right.
So that would be 5 years ago, which is a long time ago. So it would be nice to see a French team win. I think France as a whole has had quite a bit of a stinker on this Tour de France. Sure, we had the yellow jersey early on with Julien Alaphilippe, but since then it's been a very quiet Tour de France for the French teams and the French riders. So I would love to see Anthony Turgis taking the win tomorrow. However, as I said, I am backing a sprint win, and backing Mark Cavendish would be the easy bet, and I'm not about that easy life. I'm not about taking the easy path towards victory. Yeah,
even though you're 3-2 down, you're not about taking
exactly.
It easy.
I want to challenge myself. So my pick for tomorrow is going to be slightly out there. I'm going for Mark Cavendish.
This guy. He's desperate to get it back to 3-3. He hates challenging himself. I'm going for Anthony Turgy, and I think it'll be a little more unlikely odds-wise, I guess, than Mark Cavendish. So I'm being a bit brave here, maybe getting a bit too ahead of myself with this 1 point lead I have. But we'll see. Either way, I'd love to see Cavendish win as well, of course, to tie Merckx's record.
And joining Mr. Cavendish on the podium, we're going to have it's slightly uphill, so you need a bit of a kick. So I'm going to go Wout van Aert in P2, and in P3 I'll have Sonny Colbrelli.
Cool. And to round out my podium, I shall go for Jasper Stuyven and Michael Valgren from the breakaway.
But that, nevertheless, is going to wrap up this daily recap of the Tour de France. We do hope you've enjoyed it. If you didn't, please just make sure to leave a like down below, to subscribe if you're listening over on YouTube. If you're listening over on your favorite streaming platforms, then make sure to hit the follow button in order to not miss a single episode of the daily recap by Ascent. But we will see you tomorrow. Joe, do you have a final word for us?
4-2 tomorrow.
That's a bet. I'll go for 3-3 because you're not winning.
Fair enough. We'll see.
See ya.